We decided to do a remodel on our office, so we cleaned it all out and I put the desk back in and made it all nice, but I guess my wife had bigger plans. So everything came back out and we started from ground zero. I marked the studs on the wall, took off the outlet cover, and used a razor blade to cut the caulking on the baseboard. Then I removed the baseboard by prying it back. Wait, did you see that? Rewind it really quick. I used my speed square. Well, now you all know one more use of the nifty speed square. Sometimes you just gotta make do with what you've got closest to you. Anyways, I got the baseboard off and I set it aside so that I can put it back on later. There we go, using the good old speed square again, this time for one of its intended purposes. I put up this 1/2-inch soundboard on the wall first. It's definitely not required. We just decided to add it behind the wainscoting. And I just attached it to the studs with drywall screws. Next, I added the 1/4-inch masonite board to have the nice smooth finish. This will be a finished surface, so I used an 18-gauge brad nailer to nail it to the studs in the wall. And this is why, if your nail gun says oil daily, you should probably oil it daily. And you also need to be particularly careful about knowing where your layout of the wainscoting will fall, because you want to have the seams of your masonite board to fall underneath one of your vertical grid lines. As you can see, I spaced this board out a little bit in order for both edges of the board to fall underneath the trim piece. You'll see what I mean in a little bit. Also, this board is a little bit darker, as you can see, but it's the same exact board. Home Depot just ran out, and so I had to get one sheet from Lowe's. Now, to reuse the baseboard that I pulled off, I had to remove any leftover nails and clean off the old caulking to make it look good. Nailed it! We get by just fine with only one step stool for the both of us. I guess that's one of the perks of being tall. Just snapping the starting lines would have been fine, but since this was my first go at this, I decided to snap the whole grid to have a better visual. I am not starting all the way up to the ceiling on purpose, but you generally would. To make these skinny trim pieces, I just bought a 4x8 sheet of 1/2-inch MDF board and ripped it down to 1.5-inch rips. You could also buy some pre-primed pine or MDF trim as well. That could save some time on cutting and priming. But just buying one full sheet and cutting it myself was a lot cheaper. For the long horizontal pieces, I put a 45-degree angle where I had to butt them together. And then I calculated the inside length of my squares and cut a ton of them at that length. And I just started putting them in place using the pre-cut pieces as the spacers to be sure each square followed my layout and was the exact same size. And if that didn't make sense, then hopefully you're a good visual learner. And now you can see why it was important to know where the seams of your masonite boards were, because if you do it right, they will be completely covered up by the trim. I finished up all the full squares and then measured the bottom to do some special cuts to finish up. I also had to rip down and notch out one piece for this last row because I was running into the closet door trim. But as you can see, it turned out great. I also didn't finish all the way up to the ceiling because I had another project in mind for the ceiling, and I'll make another video about that if you're interested. And for this outlet, I decided to just continue the layout right over and then trace it out and cut it out after, and it worked out great. I did a quick putty over all the nail holes and then lightly sanded it off once it dried, and used a vacuum to vacuum all of those little ledges that get all the little sanded sawdust, whatever, stuck on them. So I just taped the walls off and I put plastic down on the floor, and I was all ready to get painting. We decided to use a white spray paint primer, and we were going pretty good until we ran out of a whole can after just 4 squares. And we were also getting pretty intoxicated with all that spray paint in such a small space. So we did a quick spray over at least all the MDF board edges with our last can and called it good. Then on to using a 4-inch roller and an 1.5 inch brush to get the rest. And then after just one more coat, it looked great. I would just need to really get the edges well with the brush, and then get the setback portion and the trim faces with the roller. So after finishing this wall, adding some floating shelves, doing some woven matte ceilings, and upgrading the light to a ceiling fan, my wife decided to paint all 3 other walls, and then we gave our office remodel a pass. So we moved the desk back in, and this project was complete. She freehanded all of these greens on the walls. It's beautiful. I hope you enjoyed it. We will be making more videos on how we did other things in this office, like these really strong floating shelves with no visible brackets. So be sure to check those out as well. And as always, thanks for watching.